Hey guys, welcome to the 2 Million Minutes podcast, how to make the most of your 4 years in college. During finals week, my friend Rosan and I picked the brains of Harvard seniors and asked them to reflect on their college experiences, break down how they approach different aspects of college life, and share lessons they learned with future students. This episode, we talk with Declan Garvey, a history concentrator and PAF for 3 years. He talks about some lessons he learned that will be useful for freshmen during his time pathing. He was also the president of the Harvard Republicans Club and talks about how to run an on-campus organization. He changed concentrations 3 times and discusses what to think about when choosing a concentration. We hope this episode will be helpful, and without further ado, here is Declan Garvey. Declan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely.
You are a history concentrator graduating with the class of 2017. Can you tell us a little bit about how it feels to be graduating?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've heard this a lot, but it goes incredibly fast. And I finished finals on Saturday, and since then I've been kind of in a reflective, nostalgic mood, and I still remember freshman year very vividly. I remember the summer leading up to Harvard, and then and being here, and for it to all be done pretty much is kind of eye-opening. But I've loved my time here. It's been a period of a lot of growth and a lot of learning about myself and obviously various academic pursuits. But I'm excited for the next step. But I will definitely miss my time here.
Okay. So I guess since you reflected a little bit on your time here, how do you feel like you changed over the course of your Harvard experience?
Yeah, a lot, I think, and in my opinion, for the better. I came in here like most Harvard students, a strict perfectionist, and did 50 different extracurriculars in high school, and stayed up until ungodly hours to make sure I got the grades that I needed to get in here, and nothing unsimilar to what we all did to get in here. And I kind of got here and realized fairly quickly that I wasn't going to be the smartest person at the school. I wasn't going to be the person who was involved in the most extracurriculars, and that was a shock for the first few months here, definitely. And that was, it's a tough transition period that I think we all have to kind of go through. But as a result of that, I've kind of come away with a much more, I think, realistic perspective on what to expect from ourselves and to expect from our peers. And I've become a lot more open to making mistakes and a lot more open to failures and learning from those and kind of using those experiences to grow and change it.
You were just telling us about some of the extracurriculars that you were involved in. You were a PAF.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think that contributed to your experience here?
It was probably the best thing that I did here. I applied my freshman year and was able to be lucky enough to become a PAF sophomore through senior year. I did it for 3 years, and with the same proctor for all 3 years, we had a great relationship. And I think that, I hope that I was able to, help the freshmen that I was working with kind of maneuver their way through freshman year and beyond, and also build those relationships over the course of an entire time here, not just that 1 year, but they also taught me a lot as well. Going through and meeting with them, I've had 10 every year and meeting with all of them, 6 or 7 or 8 times a semester, and hearing what they're going through and trying to put myself in their shoes and understand how I would deal with the situations that they're dealing with has taught me a lot about all the different experiences that Harvard can provide students and the different challenges that students face, and it's been an incredibly rewarding experience, and it's been awesome to watch. One of my PAFies from when I was a sophomore, and she's now a junior, just got PBK. She's Phi Beta Kappa at 24, and it's been amazing to see what all these people are going on to do.
How did your view of your own freshman year, if it did it change as you saw these new classes of freshmen go through their freshman experiences?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And one of the bigger transformative experiences of my to quote Dean Carano, was that I actually had a very, very bad freshman year. I did not enjoy my time here, and I didn't get along with roommates, and didn't feel like I belonged super well, and that was something that I had to kind of fight through that, and eventually sophomore I found a great blocking group and have loved my time in Mather and beyond. But so I think having that experience freshman year kind of helped me with pathing a little bit in that it was not the perfect experience, and I had to deal with that and figure that out. And so when Pathies came to me and said, "This isn't working. I don't feel like I belong. This place is too overwhelming." I had a little bit of experience to draw on with that and talk to them about that. But I'd also like to think that I've come a long way since freshman year, and hopefully been an example that you can do that even if you don't start off as well as you would like to.
Yeah. So what are common problems that you see that people face in their freshman year as they get accustomed to this new place?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones is what I mentioned earlier about everybody here was the smartest kid at their school, or the most talented kid at their school, and coming here and realizing that you're one of 1,600 smartest kids at their schools is kind of even the most humble person has trouble adjusting to that, and it's totally natural and reasonable. You've spent 15 years being told how smart you are, and you're in all the gifted programs in your school and all these different things, and so making that transition is tough, and having to figure out your identity outside of just being a smart person, and what you stand for and what you believe in and who you want to be outside of just getting good grades, because that for so many people is what defined them for much of their high school and prior years, and so that is something that I've experienced a lot with working with freshmen, is something that is challenging, and then also just finding out what you want to do here, because it's so overwhelming, the number of opportunities and the number of different things that there are to do. And in high school, you really didn't have to focus on any one thing. You tried to touch on as many different areas as possible, be as well-rounded as possible, and for those college apps. But when you come here, you can't do that as effectively. I think you do have to narrow down what you really care about and what you want to spend your time on. And so helping freshmen kind of figure out what it is that they care about and what they want to use their time here to do is incredibly important, but it's also very difficult.
How did you figure out what you cared about going forward?
A lot of trial and error, and a lot of it was kind of decided for me, whether it was applying for different things and not getting it, and then the things that I did get that I ended up loving. I wrote for the Crimson for my freshman sophomore year, and I liked it, but it wasn't a huge passion. I thought it would be more. I didn't do newspaper in high school, and I was like, all right, I'll give it a try here. And I liked it, but then I got involved with the Institute of Politics at IOP my sophomore spring, and that just kind of took off. I really, really enjoyed my time there. Got more involved in the different programs that I did, and then through that got more involved in the Republican Club, and those were the internships that I had. I was in DC the past 2 summers doing stuff with that and public service, and and I had no idea that was going to be what I wanted to do when I came in here. I came in as an econ concentrator and thought I was just going to go into business and do whatever. Switched to stats and then switched to history, and came in thinking I wanted to do Crimson, and then switched to the IOP, and then so it's a lot of it is trial and error, and seeing what works and what doesn't, and things that you think are going to make you happy and make you feel fulfilled. If they don't, then it's okay to just be like, oh, this wasn't for me, and find something else that you do really enjoy, because you only have 4 years here, and it'd be a shame to waste any of the time that you have pursuing something that you're pursuing not for a genuine reason.
So, since you switched, concentrations and like your extracurricular focus a few times, I know for me, at least, once you invest a little bit, it can be very hard to switch.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you wasted time. Like, what do you have to say to that? Like, what are your...
Yeah. Well, I did start in X, so I know the term sunk cost from X. And I mean, it's but I wouldn't use that to describe this. I think it's kind of a necessary step for me, at least in my own experience, to realize you have to realize what you don't love to find out what you do. And yes, it might have been nicer if I realized that I wanted to pursue history from my freshman year. I could have taken a few more different classes that I ran out of time to do. But that being said, I met a lot of friends through econ and stats, and have a lot of late night memories and of pea setting and all that. And I don't know if I would trade that for the extra year or whatever of history. I think it was kind of the path that I needed to take to find out where I wanted to go. And same with the various extracurriculars. I didn't get into Crimson Key. I tried out for freshman year and I didn't get it. I was super bummed about that. And then it's like, well, I didn't get that, so then I applied to be a path. And if I got that, maybe I wouldn't have done that and wouldn't have had these past 3 years of experiences. And so you can kind of, there's a lot of selectivity and exclusivity here with the different programs or final clubs or whatever you want to see. But I think oftentimes it works out for the best, whether you believe it to be so or not.
What were some of the motivating factors that set you along the path to concentrate in history, or what were some of the decisions you made that led you to that?
Yeah, it was, again, it was kind of one of those things where it was, what do I think I should be doing versus what do I want to do? And I came in and I was like, everybody concentrates in ec, and my dad runs a small business. That'd be great. I could concentrate in ec and then kind of follow in that footsteps there. And I enjoyed Ec 10, but not to the extent that a lot of my friends were, who are concentrated in ec and love it. And history was always my favorite subject. But I kept thinking, like, well, what am I going to do with a history degree? I don't want to be a professor. I don't want to be a high school teacher. And eventually I was just like, well, these are the favorite classes that I've taken here, and they were my favorite classes in high school. I think it makes the most sense to study that and let the chips fall where they may. And I still got a secondary in statistics and have some sort of a quantitative background, but I've really enjoyed my time in the history department, and I think that, again, it's ultimately comes down to making decisions based on, not on external factors that you believe to be the right decision, that you think, whether it's your parents who want you to do something, or what you think your friends want you to do, or what society at large expects you to do. I think you have to make decisions that are best for yourself, and you can only come to those realizations through experience and trial and error.
So you'd say trial and error is the way to really find what you like, because there's so much noise, right? Often you don't even know what you want to do because you kind of put everything in one bag, right?
And it's probably frustrating for Harvard students. I know it was for me. Like, you want to just figure out what it is immediately, and so that you can get started and get down that path, and prepare yourself for a history concentration or for
quote unquote wasted time.
Exactly. And it's you want to figure out what it is you want to do immediately, and that way you can head down that path. But that's not the way that life works, and whether whether it was the way life worked for us up until Harvard, when everything came very easily and school-wise, that's not the way that it works here, and it's not the way that it's going to work in the future. And I think the sooner that we realize that at Harvard, the better. I think that, recognizing our own imperfections, recognizing our own faults, and then recognizing what it is that we really care about and what we don't care about, and that we're only pretending to care about, is important to growing and learning.
I was wondering if you could also talk about what the initial experience you had that got you interested in the IOP was.
Yeah, it was my roommate who got me involved there. There were a few different things that looked cool my freshman year, but and that's one of the things that I regret, is that I didn't get involved sooner with that. But again, things work out the way that they do. But my roommate was very involved freshman year and sophomore year, and he was on the leadership by sophomore year. And he was like, "This is a really cool program. I think it would be a good fit for you if you're looking for an extracurricular to get involved in this spring." And I applied and got it, and it was working with one of the visiting fellows for a semester in the Fellows and Study Groups program, and that was really my first kind of view into politics. I wasn't super political in high school by any means, and even freshman and most of sophomore year didn't think about it much, and I got involved that sophomore spring, and that changed the course of the rest of my college career. Like I had a finance internship my freshman summer, but the sophomore year I was like, I'm scrapping that. I'm gonna go to DC and do this IOP internship that they were able to fund, and then got more involved in the IOP, the Republican Club, and then eventually I'm going to go back to DC to work there after graduation now. So that was kind of the turning point experience for me, extracurricular wise and career wise.
So it was really a recommendation from a roommate.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm grateful for that. Thank you, Max.
And so you got involved with the IOP sophomore year?
Yeah.
And then also the Republican Club. Are for those who aren't familiar with those two organizations, are they connected in any way?
Not officially. There's the Harvard Dems and the Republicans are two separate kind of just extracurricular organizations, but obviously there's a lot of overlap in
for sure
in programming and events that they attend at the Institute of Politics. Yeah.
Okay. And how was that? How was being in the Harvard Republicans Club on campus?
I loved my time there. Obviously loved it enough to pursue a leadership position, and I'm grateful for that opportunity. But yeah, it's a really great group of people in that club, and it's obviously an ideological minority on this campus, and so it's kind of nice to have a place where a safe space, or whatever you want to call it, a place where you can go and talk to people about issues without feeling kind of under attack or threatened ideologically. And yeah.
And you were president of that club this past year.
Yeah.
In terms of how that was that your first time running an organization on campus?
It was, yeah. So I had the experience as a PAF before that,
right.
But that was my first kind of organizational leadership.
Okay. And so what kind of duties did you have as president?
Yeah, it was a lot of administrative stuff, from setting up meetings and renting rooms and bringing in speakers and food and all that kind of stuff, to the more, especially during an election year, a more like ideological, philosophical leadership role, I guess, where we decided which direction we wanted to take the club, and that was, I was lucky enough to work with a great board who were incredibly helpful and supportive in achieving all these different goals that we set out for ourselves. But yeah, it took up a lot more time than I thought it would. It took up a lot more energy and emotional energy than I thought it would. But I loved every minute of it, and it was kind of, it was my first foray into organizational leadership like that.
So talking about time, because that's the most valuable resource, especially here,
Yes.
since there's so much you could do. Do you have any like specific, I don't know, time management routines or anything that you do to keep yourself on track, or any advice for as a path maybe?
Yeah.
Something to share.
Yeah, it's that you're absolutely right that that's the most important resource that we have here, because there is just an abundance of opportunities that are all so incredible, and you want to do them all. And what I tell my PAFEs about that is, that we're here for the academics, and that schoolwork should come first, but a close second is these opportunities that you have extracurricularly and socially as well, to meet with, or to meet people that are just so brilliant and so engaging and incredible, that's one of the major reasons that we're here, and so to pass up all of those opportunities to finish a piece set or write a paper, and I mean that stuff will get done. I think it's important to, if the president of the United Nations is coming to speak at a forum, like, you should go see him, because that's an incredible opportunity that you're not going to have, elsewhere. Or if Oprah is here at Sanders, and, which she's been here, I think, twice or 3 times in my 4 years here.
Nice.
I was able to meet Andrew Luck, the quarterback of the Colts, like, for some random, I don't even remember why he was here, but like that, those kind of experiences don't come along every day, and I think it's important to take advantage of those while you're here, because that the piece sets and the essays, they will get done. We're Harvard students, like, we're not going to not turn things in, but it's important to carve out a little bit of time to take advantage of these opportunities that we have here.
For sure. Would you say that the political groups you were involved in took up the majority of your time?
Extracurriculars, yes, I would say, especially this past year, with the election, it was obviously a huge commitment, and what I spent most of my time on, kind of by choice. I was very invested in how things went, and following that very closely. But yeah, it was a big time commitment.
How do you think that students on campus respond to the political organizations?
I wish more people got involved in them, and it's obviously the IOP has a huge following, and a lot of people do. I think there's up to 13 or 14 different programs now, and there's a lot of students that participate. But I think the majority of the students who participate are people who are concentrating in Gov or going to work in DC or work in politics already, and I think that the IOP has a lot of opportunities for students who politics is not their number one passion. Whether they're pre-med, or whether they're statistics or studying math, or want to be a musician, or anything. I think that it's a great opportunity for all students to kind of at least understand and kind of learn more about what our government that affects all of us. And I think there's a ton of different programs and different ways to get involved. I think that, and I hope to see that the IOP continues to grow in size in the coming years.
Definitely. So we touched a little bit on the subject of failure, which is going to be what you're going to talk about in your class day speech. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit, if you can?
Yeah. I don't want to give too much away. Yeah, no spoilers. But I think when I was writing this speech, which I still don't understand exactly how or why I got it, but I'm very grateful and lucky, and hopefully it goes well. But I was writing about kind of, there's this disconnect between, obviously we're at Harvard and we're doing relatively well in life by that standard, but there's plenty of things that we fall short in every single day. and then there's also these ridiculous Harvard standards that we compare ourselves to, and by that measure, we're failing quite a bit. And so, what I hope to achieve with the speech is kind of remind people and remind my classmates as we're graduating that we're doing okay, and the things that seem incredibly important right now, in the grand scheme of things, are not, and that we should celebrate all that we've accomplished while acknowledging that we're imperfect and acknowledging that we're going to make mistakes and that's okay. And so, excuse me. And for kind of the gist of the speech is, it's the humor speech, the Ivy oration. So I'm trying to point out kind of some of the more trivial things that matter for some reason to us a lot right now, that when we look back 5-10 years are just not going to matter at all. And hopefully it goes over well.
All right. Well, good luck to you with that.
Thank you.
What are some of the things that you think your classes? Can you give us an example of one of those things that you think classes worry about that may be trivial? Or are you going to save it for the speech?
I'll give a boring one right now. I think grades is one that we're yeah, it's nothing too insightful there, but I think that and it's something that I probably cared a little bit less about this year than I have in years past, but something that for 3.5 years I cared a great deal about and obsessed over and stayed up late over and was incredibly anxious about. And looking back, I do wish that I spent a little bit less time obsessing over that and a little bit more time meeting new people, or a little bit more time going to events or things like that. And my grades are fine. I'm not going to graduate with top honors or anything like that, but they're good enough, and I have a job for next year, and I'm still going to have a Harvard degree. And I think that that's something that is important to remind our classmates about. And obviously, I have a lot of friends who are graduating with top honors, and it's incredible. And the hard work and dedication that they put into that is awesome. But it's not that level of academic achievement isn't for everybody, and some people are cut out for different things. And so I think it's okay to have everybody kind of assess themselves where they want to be on that spectrum, and determine for themselves how they want to balance their time and spend their time. So.
Also, in the vein of looking back, what do you think would be one piece of advice you'd give to either incoming freshmen or just younger classes in general?
Yeah. I guess the most important thing would be to what we talked about a little bit earlier, of realizing why you're doing the things that you're doing, and trying to think critically about that. And for me, it was studying econ, and it took me a little bit of time to be like, well, why am I studying econ? Is it just because is it because I love it, or is it because that's what I think I should be doing? And making that realization was really important for me to grow here and to figure out what my passions were and how best to pursue those. So I think, but that doesn't apply to just academics. It applies to who your friends are. It applies to the extracurriculars that you're doing, or what you're doing on weekends or whatnot. And it's everybody has their own path that's set out for them, and I think it's important to kind of realize why you're making the decisions that you're doing, and that way you can best assess whether these are the right choices for you, and you'll have a much better experience here for doing that, I think.
Sweet. So the why is very important.
Yes.
Kind of as a senior, if you think about your experience here at Harvard over these 4 years, what are some of the memories that come up that really kind of encapsulate Harvard for you?
Yeah. Well, there's a few. There's a few different. We have the academic Harvard. We have the extracurricular Harvard, the social, and Yeah, once that triangle with sleep, social life, and good grades, pick 2. Academic Harvard. I guess I have a distinct memory of my sophomore fall. I took CS 50, Stat 110, and Math 21, and that was just a poor choice. And so all 3 of those P-sets were due on Friday every week. And so there was, most of the time I'd try and get 1 out of the way before Thursday night, and then just work on the other 2. But there was one night where I had all 3 to start on Thursday night. And there was one other friend that one of my blockmates was in the same boat. And I remember she and I were just sitting in the Mather JCR at like 6 p.m. Like, all right, we're going to get through these 3 P-sets before 2 p.m. tomorrow. And we just stayed up all night and ate a lot of Pop-Tarts from the vending machine. And that's and it was terrible, but also great now that I can look back on it 3 years later. And so I think that kind of is a fun memory there. Let's see. And then extracurricular, like so many things from meeting incredible leaders. Like last week was John Kasich, or earlier this year I was able to spend like a day and a half with Jeb Bush, who I worked on his campaign, and unfortunately ended a little too quickly. But things like that, and or just having fun with friends, and or Mather in the softball IM championships last week, and just doing fun stuff that you're not going to have an opportunity to do once you graduate here. So just waking up every day or going to bed every day with some of your best friends 8 feet down the hall is not always going to be the case. So enjoy that while you can.
For sure. Yeah. What is one thing you learned freshman year that turned out to be false?
That's a good question. I guess one of the big things is that freshman year is incredibly determinative of how the next 3 years will go. I thought that at the time, and because my freshman year didn't go super great, I was like very bummed about that. And I never seriously entertained it, but I thought a little bit about transferring, and I am obviously so glad that I did not, because there so many things change between freshman and senior year. Like some people come in more ready for the college experience than others do, and it took me a little bit of time to get adjusted here and to find my bearings. But once I did, I haven't looked back, and tried to make the most of the experience that I could, and have met so many incredible people along the way. But yeah, at freshman year, I thought, well, shoot, I blew this year, and that's gonna determine who my friends are, what I'm able to accomplish, what my grades are going to be, And I thought, oh well, this is it, I guess. And it wasn't. You have plenty of time to carve out what you want your experience to be and who you want to be. And it's one of the most exciting parts about Harvard, is that you leave here you're the same person, but you leave here a very different person than you came in. A lot of growth happens here, not just in the classroom, just figuring out who you are and what matters to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you have any study tips or habits that you used either for history or just in general?
Yeah. For history, you can't do all of the reading that they assign. I mean, it's like
yeah, for sure.
If you're getting 400 pages a week in one class and you're taking 3 other classes, like there's no way that it's all going to get done. So it's important to be able to determine what reading is significant and what you need to do, and also when. You don't always have to do all the reading for every class, but that week. But catch up later when So I think just, figuring out ways to read that work for you, whether it be kind of the more classic, read the first and last page of every chapter, and the topic sentences of every paragraph in between. That worked for a while, as well as kind of highlighting quotes in the books and different things like that. But it's important to recognize, like my freshman, sophomore year, I was like, well, I did all the reading in high school, so I'll do all the reading in college. And it took me forever, and I was up until 4 a.m., and I didn't learn any more than I have the past 2 years just because I read every single word. It's more important to...
I think read strategically is something I've heard often.
Yes.
But how did you find yourself actually doing that? I know you said, like, read the topic sentences, but what did you find to be the more important sections of things?
Yeah.
And as a follow-up to that, do you think that's affected the way you've read other things not for class?
Yeah, it definitely has. I think one of the things that I learned to do more junior and senior year was look at what you're reading for. So whether you have a paper that's going to be coming up later in this class, and if you know the prompts already, you can see what those are and be like, okay, it's important for me to pick this part out of the reading because I'll use it in a paper later. Or if it's just for discussion question in section, you can kind of learn what your TF is looking for, and kind of what kind of contributions you're expected to make, and read enough to make those contributions, and then if you have to move on to your other class because you have 400 pages in multiple classes, then you do that. And in terms of reading outside, absolutely, I think I don't read books cover to cover anymore, which is I do kind of miss, but it allows me to get through a lot more material in a shorter amount of time. Whether it's picking out a specific chapter of a book that I think it kind of highlights the crux of the argument the best, or if it's reading portions of a really long Atlantic article or something like that, and not getting through the entire thing, but being able to understand the gist of the article and talk about it and have conversations with people about it it's important skill.
And what are like your main or favorite activities here on campus for fun?
It's there's a lot to do, obviously, and having Boston right here. I actually am graduating in 3 weeks. I've gone the full 4 years not drinking here, and so that takes some of the activities off the table, but not even really. I still go to different things and have a great time. But I'd love to go into Boston, and I've gone to way too many Red Sox games with my roommates, and that. Go to a ton of movies at the Boston Common Theater. IMs are great. I didn't get involved in those until a little bit later junior year. I should have done that sooner, but that's a great way to meet new people in your house and to also be active and things like that. And then just like, there's nothing wrong with just hanging out in your common room with a bunch of friends and talking or playing a board game or doing whatever. Those are some of the best nights that I've had in college. Is just our blocking group comes over and we just talk, and
aside from the pizza nights, of course.
Aside from yes, those are Thursday nights of the fall of 2014. Those were the best. But besides that, close second would be
Sweet.
I was also wondering, you just mentioned that you read books more for getting through the material now. Or you're able to get through more material now. Over the course of these past 4 years, what are a few of the books that maybe helped you grow the most or influenced you the most?
It's something that I'm going to try and get back into now that I'm done with college, which is weird to say. I haven't read fiction in probably 4 or 5 years, which is something that I read a ton as a kid. Would read the Harry Potter books in 2 days and whatever. and I don't do that as much anymore. But I've really gotten into reading biographies lately. I took a class my sophomore year on, it was just called biography, and it was taught by Professor Jill Lepore, and I loved it. And we learned about how to best read them for content, and also we had to write our own kind of shorter biographies. And I most recently read the Walter Isaacson Steve Jobs biography. That one I did read all the way through because it was so well written, and but I really enjoyed kind of learning from other people and their experiences, and I think that's that's various. I'm not going to go into tech or start a $1 billion company. Maybe I will. That'd be nice, but
let's not rule that out.
Yeah. Don't rule anything out. But he had an incredible life and a lot of different skills that I learned about through this book, and whether that's about management or like relationships, or and with relationships and Steve Jobs, what not to do necessarily, but it was different things like that. You're able to pick up on incredible experiences without having lived them yourself.
Definitely,
and that's
please.
Yeah, just because it seems like a very practical thing. How do you approach reading a biography then?
It's one of the big things that we learned about in the class was to understand who's writing it and why. And so throughout a lot of history, biographies were written by, the person would hire someone to write a favorable book about them. And it's important to be able to discern whether or not this was a commissioned biography, which is what that would be, or uncommissioned, unauthorized biography, which gives you a more realistic, holistic approach to the person's life. And I think there's things to be gleaned from both. The authorized biography, you can learn what the person thought to be most important about themselves, because they're kind of telling the person what to write about. But then obviously you're able to get a more well-rounded view of the person through an unauthorized, kind of more in-depth and interrogative book.
For sure. And I was also thinking, as somebody who's concentrating in history, you might be particularly interested in historical biographies.
Yeah. It's I've not made it through the entirety of Doris Kearns Goodwin's Team of Rivals about Lincoln, but she has written some great stuff, obviously, and I've read bits and pieces of her book on Kennedy and book on FDR, and I study my history concentration has had a focus in American political history, and so I've read some of that stuff for class, but a lot of it just for fun as well. And the project that I did for this biography class, I ended up writing it on Roy Disney, who was Walt Disney's older brother, and basically the business brains behind the entire Disney company while Walt was a creative. And I had no idea, but you can learn so much about not just a person, but there it was learning about a company or an entire industry that they basically created. And in doing research on a person, you end up finding out so much about all the things that they touched and different aspects of their life.
Do you think you've learned how to better take lessons from other people's lives, whether it's prominent figures or what have you, and apply it to your own life?
Yeah, I think.
And what is an example of that?
Yes. So, yeah, I haven't read too many of those self-help books, whatever. I've read a few, but I think I learned a lot more from the historical looks at these people's lives than I would from something like that. I think people live these lives and they have these experiences in real time, not looking to teach a lesson or to impart wisdom necessarily. And I think that's even more conducive to learning, is that these people are making decisions and they don't always make the right decisions, and you can learn either way on and it's not, there's not always a right or wrong either. It's, you can look at what these different people's priorities were, or what their values were, and if they align with your priorities and values, you can learn a lot. And if they don't, you can still learn one, how other people live, and how to better understand people with different values and different priorities than yours. For example, Steve Jobs had placed a much greater value on his work life than his family life, and that's not how I hope to live my life in the future. But it was incredibly eye-opening to me to see how somebody's business could become so integral and ingratiated into their identity and into their persona, and also to what degree like that was necessary for Apple to be founded. Did it need somebody to completely forgo interpersonal responsibilities and things like that to dedicate themselves 100% to the company? And so whether or not you take lessons on how to live your life or how not to live your life from these experiences, I think that it's important either way.
Cool. Shifting gears a little bit.
Yeah.
With graduation in the near future, you only have a very limited time left here at Harvard. How do you hope to use that time, and what are you looking forward to after graduation?
Yeah, it's. I think we're under 3 weeks now until I'm out of here. Until they kick us out, we have to be out of our dorms by May 26th, I think. And it's not enough time for everything that I want to do here, but we get our turn of 4 years, and I think that it's the right amount of another year here. I think I would run out of things to do and to be challenged by. So I'm excited for the next challenge, whatever that may be. But in the time I have left, I just want to spend it with the people that I care about and the people that have made these 4 years so incredible. And we're never going to be unable to communicate with the technology today, but we are going to be unable to wake up and walk down the hall and knock on their door and just go talk to someone for
sure,
an hour, or lose track of time, whatever. And so that's something that I really want to cherish the last few weeks that we have here. And then obviously like the different senior week events will be great, and looking forward to those. But it's really the people that I want to be able to make more memories and to kind of commemorate the ones that we've already had. So
cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Declan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Is there any parting words you want to leave the listeners with?
A quote that I've tried to live my life by since I discovered it like 3 years ago is from the Dalai Lama, and he said, what did he say? No, it was open your arms to change, but never let go of your values. And so that is incredibly profound. And
there we go.
So that is be open to new experiences and to new things, but don't forget who you are and what matters to you.
Well, thank you for those words.
To thank the Dalai
I'll have to
Lama.
meditate on that. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, and thank you guys for listening.